What's up? This is the Atypical Intentions podcast. My name's Kyle,
And I'm Trey.
and that was probably the most game show I've hit so far.
No, it's fire, dude. I'm sure about 90% of people actually clicked out of the clicked out of the podcast right after.
They go, "Oh, sorry,
No,
wrong podcast, wrong podcast."
no shot, no shot. This isn't The Price Is Right.
I'm gonna do my best, but I got the sniffles this time. So if I cough or anything like that, I'm gonna try to dive to my mute button. But
Okay.
I just want you to
Okay.
know.
Well, yeah. If it's not on par, we'll just X-nay this whole podcast. I mean, sniffles ruin a whole topic.
Yeah, and then we'll be like, "Sorry, no podcast this week. Kyle's soft."
Right. That's exactly what we'll do. And it'll just be a big face shot of you everywhere.
Yeah. But yeah, no, there's this, and you were just sick. Are you back? Are you 100%? Are you good?
Yeah, I'd sound pretty close. It's good timing. With Carly being, any time in these next 2 weeks, she could be having our son. So we want sickness to be as far away from that as possible. It just complicates the whole process. And I think I was a little sick when I was coming back from San Diego, kind of the tail end of it. She got a little bit of my remnants for like a day or two, but the Drexel household is solid. It's solid right now.
Yeah, it's fair to say that since you left for Liga Bellish, did I say it
There you
right?
go. Licables.
Liga
Yes, there you go.
that your equilibrium has never had an opportunity to like settle, right? Because going to a new country, you're never gonna get there and just feel comfortable, right? And then you get there early, you have an early injury, that injury turns into another injury, turns into surgery, turns into coming home, right? So you actually haven't had a moment of like true equilibrium, and like being sick is also like it's gonna toss you off equilibrium. So do you feel like you're getting better at getting back to equilibrium, or do you feel like you're just getting more comfortable in just this kind of like uneven ground?
That's a good question. I think all my overseas hoopers, if they're listening, they can attest to this. But normally, right when you start feeling equilibrium, when you go to a new country to play, it's about, I would say, it really hits after 3 to 5 months, and it's kind of this January time is when you start. Okay, you're fully acclimated. You know where the grocery store is. You know where everything is. And now it's like, okay, now I can breathe a little bit and kind of find my groove for the last couple months. Personally, that whole 3 to 5 month timeline got, ripped to shreds. And amongst all the chaos, I don't think I necessarily got, I don't think I still ever found an equilibrium. I just got more comfortable with operating from a off-kilter equilibrium. So it's finding the couple things that ground you at the start of the day or at the end of the day or, really any time in your day. There's a couple staples that you can kind of like hold on to. And then it's just kind of doing your best. And I was going to say doing your best to manage, but one thing I've really been kind of like focusing on these last, 6 weeks since I've been home, now that I have more time to work on Atypical, work on other things, work on my rehab, is not try and manage everything and instead try and create in everything. And in that little reframe kind of changes it from trying to put out the fires to trying to build the house, right? And I think a good example of what I'm trying to talk about is my first year in Benfica. I'd never won a championship. I'd won one in Serbia, domestic league, but it's not like a real championship. I won a cup championship in Poland, but this one in Benfica, that whole year I was building to become a champion, right? That was one feeling. The second year, after I'd already become a champion, that whole year I felt myself managing to not become the team that loses in the championship, right? So it was more like trying to like, oh, we got to get it done. We got to get it done. Whereas others are just like, let's get it done. I don't know if that dichotomy makes sense, but
Yeah. There's a fragility in having something to lose.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part. A lot of times when people start accomplishing things, they're scared of their next endeavor because of the opportunity to look like a failure because they just looked like a success. And long story short, since I've been home and since like we were talking about equilibrium, I'm just focusing on creating first, no matter where the equilibrium is. And now I think there is an equilibrium forming after it's been almost, it's been like 6 weeks since I've been home. And I think there is an equilibrium forming. Part of the thing that I'm nervous about is it's going to be too comfortable of an equilibrium to where I'm like, dude, I don't know if I really like it here. You know what I'm saying? Because this is my first extended period at home. That's not the summer. And so that's a whole thing to navigate in it of itself. Definitely find an equilibrium. I know you've had a lot of changes here in the last 3 weeks, 2 weeks. You went from, I was there, we were hanging out, and while I was in San Diego with you, you were making a big decision. You want to run us through kind of like how you feel right now in terms of your equilibrium and kind of what's going on?
A lot of my lack of equilibrium is honestly my fault. I would say that it's very avoidable because I've not done a great job of maintaining systems in my life. Like, allowing myself to not run for 3 days or not exercise for a week or do something like that, right? Because, and you've expressed this with your rehab, it's like you're not building towards anything. So it's like, what matters, right? Why does it matter if I don't do this thing? And
wait, it's not building towards something. It's just the timeline is so far.
yeah,
So it feels like you aren't, but it's like the only way you get to the end of the timeline is that you take the steps today. And that's, again, that makes the systems harder to adhere to because there's no little affirmations along the way. There's no,
yeah,
but I will say I'm starting to feel some. So it's a different conversation.
yeah. Like there's no, at least in where I'm at right now, like there's no obvious payoff, right? There's no, like the crowd goes wild moment. I don't have that. And that's fine. That's life, right? That is life. And the thing that I'm focusing on is like, I just turned 30. I want to be 40. And if like, I'm so fortunate to have children one day, it's like the crowd goes wild as me being able to run around the yard with my kids, right? That's the crowd. Like that is the crowd that matters, and B, that is the crowd that is going wild. So, but like that feels very distant, right? So in moments where you just want to veg out and not go outside and not do your things like that's so all that to be said, equilibrium. And then like from a career perspective, I haven't really been able to get a clear footing or clear understanding of what I actually want to do. And to keep the long story short, when you're like a complete owner of your business, of your thing, and I say it like that because at the end of the day, we all are owning our own careers, right? Like no one else is dictating your career for you. But when all of it is up to you, you start to lose sight of what you're good at, and you start to just realize what needs to be done in order to move the thing forward, right? Like you don't know what is the thing that someone would hire you to pay you for. So you end up pitching yourself for a lot of different things, and people will ask a lot of different things of you. And Trey mentioned I recently accepted a job with a new company that I'm really excited about. I'll probably, if you end up following me on LinkedIn or something like that, I'll probably post a lot about it there. But yeah, so the good news is that startup. And what I've learned is my equilibrium is actually better like on a rocky surface. I do better when things are more up in the air. I do better when there's opportunity to be had, but you have to like grit and grind, and you have to create your own systems on how to get those things. So I'm really looking forward to it. This is probably the first time I've been excited about something that's purely my own thing in 3-4 years. So I'm really looking forward to it because, like, obviously, I'm super excited about Atypical and doing this stuff with you, but like, it's shared excitement, right? It's you and I thinking about the future. It's you and I thinking about what this thing could be, what it can mean to people. But it's shared. Like this one, I feel like as I'm excited for me. Like I'm excited to see Kyle do this thing. So that'll be cool. But the reason I brought up Equilibrium, and I was manufacturing a segue early on. And this is something that Trey and I were talking about off camera, but there's this idea of like protecting your peace, right? And if you're looking at like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is essentially like food and shelter, self, like your protection of yourself, and then purpose, yeah, higher purpose. This is like the first layer. Equilibrium is first layer. Your systems protect your peace, right? Your systems are the daily routine that have proven to bring you a level of peace, right? And then there's the next layer, right? So you have the things that I do, and then you have the things that happen to you, right? You have the people who are talking to you about your piece, who are about your skill set, about all this stuff, right? And Trey, you had this really good analogy, and I'll kind of like tee it up for you. But let's talk about this second layer of peace. Let's talk about this second layer of how do you protect your peace, and how do you look at that?
Yeah, when I think of peace, I like to use the synonym tranquility. And when I think of tranquility, I always use a kind of like a metaphorical example of a pond, right? And think of a pond when the surface is flat, it's a quiet morning, there's a light fog, and there's still some sounds, but it's very calming. There's not a lot going on. The water is glassy and it basically reflects the sky onto the water. That is my visualization of tranquility. And where I'm taking this is your tranquility and your peace. There will always be things trying to jump into your pond, fall into your pond, and create these disturbances that very easy visualization is kind of like ripples along the surface of the water. And a common one is just people around us and people that talk about us. And it could be your coach, it could be your teammates, it could be a fan jawing with you. It could be so many things in this basketball world, but then so many in your actual personal life. It could be your wife. It could be your kids. It could be your parents have this opinion of what you're doing. It could be all these things that could be potential perturbations on the surface of your pond. Well, think of this pond, right? It's your tranquility, and the only way that you can operate from your best self is when that surface is glassy, right? There's no denying that there will be moments of ripples, but when you're functioning at your highest self, that surface is glassy. And the power and the thing I'm trying to get to on this tranquility is you have the power to allow what gets thrown into your pond. And I kind of like use this in terms of your like your teammates can have their opinions of you. Your coach can have your opinions of you. But they only have power if you allow them into your pond. And this is like the power of choice we have as cerebral athletes, as being of sound mind. You can make that decision, right? You can't change what goes around or what goes on around you, but you can always change at how you receive and what you allow to enter your inner, your inner circle, your inner tranquility. And I just love, like, the reason we talked about this before and I wanted to talk about this is I made a short form video, and just since I've been documenting my rehab, I haven't probably documented it as detailed as I wanted to, but a lot of, like, because I have a decent YouTube following, like, people will comment, and 99% of them are very, very positive and encouraging. But there's always the 1%ers. I still remember a comment, like, burned in my brain, and I try and read the comments. Some people say don't read comments just because it's just noise. But I try and read it to, if someone says something nice, I want to show appreciation. I want to show engagement with them and that I am listening to them. But the one comment was, hey, man, tough situation. Sorry about your situation. I really, hope your family's good, bro, but basketball's cooked. I know this injury. You're not coming back. I remember I called you about this, and I was like, man, this comment actually really bothered me. And that was about 2 weeks ago. And now when I think of it from this lens, I allowed this one comment, I allowed that to be like a boulder into my pond. And it's like, I can easily just say, hey, you have no understanding of what goes on internally. You have your box you've put on the world, your own limiting beliefs for what you think of, injury rehab, for what you think of basketball careers. You, like other people, will have their opinions based on what they viewed in themselves and what they've seen, right? And my uncle, Sean Tobin, cool guy, fun guy, interesting guy, responded to the comment, and he was basically like, that makes sense you would say that because you're not someone that has conquered long odds before. And if you don't know what long odds mean, it means things that are very unlikely, right? For example, if you're 6 years old saying, I want to play pro basketball, your actual odds of doing that are incredibly low. Those are long odds. And for people that haven't accomplished long odds before, they think long odds are damning. They think it actually is, that is your reality. If it's bad odds, why take it, right? But my uncle was like, hey, people come back from this all the time, and it's usually people that have conquered long odds before because they're not the same obstacle for people who have conquered them and people who haven't. And he's like, I think Trey will come back great because he's already done the hardest. He's done something harder than coming back from a knee surgery. He got to the point where he played pro basketball. And so, again, to wrap up this 6-minute rant is to essentially say, protect your peace and choose what opinions you allow into your pond, and acknowledge a lot of times the opinions coming in have limiting beliefs that aren't the same as yours. So don't let people put you in the box that they've already placed themselves in. And I think that's your superpower as an athlete, as someone who wants to accomplish big goals. I think most of the listeners to this podcast, they have huge goals. And they're probably sometimes insecure about them. I'm insecure about my goals all the time because they're so ambitious. And so many people, if they heard them, would be like, no shot. But it's like, hey, man, that's what the game is. The game is overcoming the odds, because to accomplish anything great, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be everyone does it, because then it's not great, you know? So
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. I don't know if I teed something up for you. I might have actually put you in a hole here because I just rambled for 6 minutes.
No, that was great. It was beautiful.
There's a monologue in the movie.
So there's a few things there. I think that the way that I would respond to that conversation is someone says, hey, Trey, you're not going to come back. And I would say, you're right. The player that you know and you saw is not coming back. Like a better and more thoughtful and a more powerful version of myself is going to come back. Call him Troy if you want to. Maybe that's when you start going by Thomas.
Okay,
But,
the Thomas comeback.
Yeah, so it's maybe that's what it is. But yeah, because I think that this is like, if you're looking at the hero's journey, right? And you have experienced like an earthquake in your pond, right? Your pond, because it like you used this analogy earlier, but all these comments are like rocks being tossed into your pond to ruin the tranquility, right? But no one is throwing bigger rocks than you are, right? Like when you are at your lowest moments, when you have a workout that you don't feel like is quite tracking the way you want to track, or you have a day full of knee inflammation or something like that. Like you're the one tossing boulders into your pond, right? And that's one thing about high achievers, and this is something that I hold to and I believe, is that the reason why high achievers are relatively unaffected by the comments of others is because those comments pale in comparison to what you are already saying to yourself.
For sure.
Right?
For sure.
Like the like, hey man, love ya, don't think you're coming back is probably the nicest thing you've heard about your injury comparatively to what you've been telling yourself, right? And so I really love this idea of protecting your pond, and I love this idea of growing does not necessarily just mean having a bigger pond, right? Like, yes, you have a bigger thing to prepare. You have a bigger thing to protect as your piece now spans a larger understanding of who you are. But also, like, a better defense mechanism. Like, when you're in high school, you build, like, a chain link fence. In college, now you're building, like, a moat around your chain link fence. And now it's like, as a pro, you have to build, like, shock absorbers underneath the pond so that it can withstand earthquakes and all these different things. And the purpose of this is not just to be unaffected, right? The purpose of this is not to like have someone insult you and you can just kind of look at them like, or like I think the Matt Barnes, Kobe Bryant like ball fake is a good example. Like that's not the goal. The goal is not that. The goal is to see your pond as tranquil, see it as something that cannot be affected, and then everything you do from that point forward can be as like ferocious and aggressive, and you can be so to the point because everything else is taken care of, right? Mm-hmm. The self is taken care of, the family's taken care of, the house is taken care of, all these things are taken care of, so all there is left to do is to go out there and execute, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's a really powerful thing, right? Because it is from this tranquility, it is from this peace in which this like ferocity and this aggression is born. It's not those things don't live in contrast to the peace. They are amplified by the peace. It's almost like the whole like Kung Fu master is the most powerful of all, even though they seem to move slow or they seem to be slow to speak or whatever it might be. That's kind of what I got from your soliloquy that I just soliloquized against.
Yeah, I think a good point to make too is protecting your peace does not mean removing yourself from risk or from big dreams or hard environments. It's not the absence of difficulty, it's the foundation of calmness amongst increased difficulty. I think the more in tune you get with protecting that peace, you're more prepared for the more intense environments, right? And it's this idea, like what you said about unleashing your ferocity, it's this idea of being grounded, right? If you're going to throw a punch and you're in mud, right? Unsolid foundation, you're going to throw that punch and it's not going to be as strong, right? It's because you're going to slip out, your base is all off. Whereas if you're on firm ground and a solid foundation, when you go to throw that punch, it's going to have a lot more power. There's a lot more power transfer from your foundation, your legs, through your hand. And that's kind of the point I'm trying to get here. When you're ready to make your punch, when you're going in, the more solid of a foundation you have, the harder you can punch and the more consistently you can throw punch after punch, and you can dodge, you can bob, you can weave. And this isn't to say either that before you start anything, you need a solid foundation. I think the solid foundation green lights it a bit, but it's not necessary. It's not completely necessary, because as we expose ourselves to more difficult scenarios, we also learn strategies and capabilities to protect the pond and to solidify our foundation. So some of your foundation building is only forged through fire, right? And so the last thing I'd want is to explain this about your foundation, your piece, and then people listening get gun shy, not taking risks, and they're like, oh, well, I'm not at a place yet. It's like, you will learn how to get to that place the more you expose yourself to, and then you eventually get a pretty solid foundation where you can increase the heat. Whereas I have like I said, a fairly substantial YouTube following that I'm not very fearful of anything I post. In like broad picture, there are some things that I know would be huge rocks in my pond. And so those are each individual hurdles. There's kind of like different foundations for each thing. But again, take the risk, expose yourself to fire, and kind of get acclimated and see what foundation you truly have is a good process and mindset in terms of taking risk. I'm not going to say, sell your house and go move overseas to try and get a contract. But you get the point here.
Yeah. And I also like to add on to your thing, and I heard this term today, and I think it's so good. So I'll add it in there at the end. But also, don't mistake like lessons for rocks, right?
Yep.
You've been getting this comment recently, and this has been part of the uphill battle in the community. Is it's not just watch film with me, but it's how do I watch film, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like how do I even do that, right? What am I looking for? What am I saying? So this term I heard is called ignorance mapping, which is the quicker you're able to figure out the things you don't know, and not figuring out as in a solution, just being able to identify what you don't know, right? Because once you know what you don't know, then you're able to actually make steps forward, and you're able to do something.
Yep.
And a lot of times you'll be watching film, and you see a pick and roll with Luka, and he puts his guy in jail, and he makes like a top 1% basketball IQ play. And the mistake of this that you can make is you can say, I can't make that pass. Stone in the lake, right?
Yeah.
Stone in the pond, right? Whereas that's actually just an opportunity for you to say, I can't make that pass. Like I don't know how to make that pass. And then you go to your pond and you think about your peace and you think about your tranquility. And you're like, but I can make this, and this pass.
Yep.
So I can make passes.
Yep.
So therefore, all is left to do is just to learn how to make that pass, learn how to recognize those opportunities. And I want to switch into this topic of learning and watching film and expanding yourself without necessarily talking negatively of yourself. So I'm going to offer a story about Kyle. My junior year of high school. So for reference, my freshman, sophomore year, I ran track. I was pretty good at it, but I had never really committed to it. It was something I was just naturally kind of good at. And so then I always had the out of like, I don't care about this that much. So if the thing doesn't go the way I want it to go, then it's like, well, yeah, like I didn't even train. I didn't even try. Right. Mm-hmm. My junior year, first big race of the season, I had told everyone I had quit playing basketball. I had quit doing all extra, anything that wasn't running. I stopped, and I said, this is my thing. This is my path. I'm going to be really, really good at this. Right. So I get to our first invite, and I'm running the 2 mile, which is the end of the meet. And I remember watching the invite section of the mile, and I had this pit in my stomach. I had this like fear inside of me. It's like, these guys are running really fast. I don't think I can run that fast. I don't think I can do what they're doing. Right. Mm-hmm. And I had these rocks getting tossed in my pond because I said, I am not that. Whatever that is, I am not that. And that like shook me to my core. Long story short, I went and I ran the 2 mile later that day. I won the race, and I remember on the way home, I felt like invincible. And now thinking back on that, I'm like, think about how fragile that was, right? Think about how fragile it was that I could watch something that I didn't think I could do, and then I could win a race, and then like I would just forget about it. It's like, no, like let's ignorance map. Let's figure out why it feels like I can't do this thing, and fortunately it didn't affect my performance, and I was able to go on and do other things. But like, it was a really big thing for me, like to be able to be confident and see someone else succeed, see someone else do something good, and not track that against, can I do something good, right? Yeah. In the same way that I'm sure, like, if you're a starter and you sub out because you're just part of the rotation, and the backup comes and starts killing, right? Like, is your first thought like, he's doing things that I can't do, nor will I ever be able to do them? Or it's like, well, why is he killing? What is he good at? What are these things? How can I add that to my repertoire? Yeah. What do you think about that? This is new to you. I've never talked to you about ignorance mapping. So
no, I really like this concept. I kind of immediately go to this piggybacking of almost like, I was going to use a negative term here because you use ignorance. So I was going to say like insecurity mapping in the same way. Let's say you're a basketball player and you can't shoot, or you feel you can't shoot, and you feel you have some inadequacies in other areas, but the shooting is the thorn in your side. you can insecurity map and be like, for me, this is the biggest risk. If someone says I can't shoot, it's really going to hurt. Because you have this awareness and you've kind of mapped out the tiers of your insecurities, you can be like, okay, maybe my first risk is going to be a mid-range, because that's shooting, but it's not as ambitious as shooting threes, and the consequences if I miss a mid-range aren't going to be I'm terrible. Whereas if you miss a couple threes, you're like, dude, I can't shoot. And if someone says something too, that steamrolls. I remember I watched this video yesterday on KG, Kevin Garnett, and he said, when I was on the court, one of his mentors told him every person in the world has doubt. And it was his job when he stepped on that floor to identify the doubt in the other person and accentuate it. And I said, Lord, it would be a stressful time playing against KG. You better have your insecurities mapped, because he's gonna find the one, and he's gonna press on that until you collapse. And so I just take that ignorance mapping into kind of like a self mapping and kind of insecurity mapping, so that you can kind of realize what your big trigger points are, and kind of like build around them and build that, account for them until you're ready to put yourself out there, and solidify your foundation until you're ready to take that bigger risk. I think a good example for me, at least let's go business wise with Atypical, one of my biggest insecurities was charging money for advice, because my biggest thing I don't want to, the thing that would stab me in the core is if someone said, hey, this guy's trying to exploit the young athlete's journey, right? And so I was so nervous to ever, ask for, something like the community is now. It's $15 a month, and even 15 was hard for me to ask, because that made me vulnerable to that someone trying to throw that rock in my pond, and I knew I didn't have a defense system against that, because in my core, that's my biggest fear of how someone else would look at me. And so we built Atypical as give away everything for free, make it crystal clear that my goal is not to fill my pockets with money. My goal is to invest in the next generation of pros, is to make real impact. And then when the time comes, when I feel like I've built a solid enough foundation, we can bring up that other conversation, because I feel like I've built up some defenses around those rocks that will inevitably be thrown. No matter what you're asking for money for, people are going to say that. It can be, you could literally be giving out gold bars that are on the market. Say this gold bar is worth $24K, and someone will be like, dude, he's exploiting people, he probably got them for $20K. It's like, well yeah, if you did, that's his competitive advantage. Doesn't mean he hates the people he's selling to. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's like so anywho, I kind of a little bit roundabout and a little bit different direction there, but on that concept of ignorance mapping, it's the better you know yourself, the better you can create, and the better you can prepare for when people, like you said, when you said kind of the example I used about the shooting. You can prepare for those moments when you're not, in your best spot, when you can't do that as good as you feel like you need to. Let's build around it. It's the Asar Thompson who can't really shoot, and he's now an elite cutter, and he's now a great passer, and he's a great rebounder. Now he's giving himself space to start taking the risks of shooting more jump shots, and he's putting in the time in the gym to get that confidence to shoot more jump shots. Hopefully that made sense.
So there's a couple things I want to jump on that. So the first one is so actually more of an example. So Richard Jefferson has he almost does a Sunday, whatever that's called, really short little interviews, 8 minutes.
Sunday conversation. Conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of like that, but with Richard Jefferson, and he did one with Draymond Green, and they straight up took of the 8-9 minutes that this video was, they took 2 or 3 minutes just to make fun of Draymond Green for the way that he shoots a basketball. He goes, they pull up the meme with the backpack on Draymond Green in front of Draymond Green, right? Which is crazy, right? Yeah. And Draymond Green says, when we got KD, they told me, you don't need to shoot the ball anymore. Like we don't need those shots,
Yeah.
right? And he said, you don't use it, you lose it. It's like, I just can't shoot the ball anymore. Like it's like, and granted, he's like 34, 35 years old. I mean, it would be really impressive if he had a second wave of his jump shot at this point in his life. But, and let's not forget, Draymond Green has had a couple spurts of just hitting crazy shots.
Couple big finals games.
Yeah.
For sure.
But it was really interesting watching Draymond Green go, yeah, like that is the way that it was, right? This is someone who's won, I think he's a 2-time gold medalist, multi-time finals winner.
All-Stars, defensive
yeah.
player of the year.
And he kind of was just like, yeah, like that's, like you can't interrupt. Like I know who I am. Like I'm a Hall of Fame level player, and I know that about myself. Anyways, so that was a good example.
That pond is protected. That boy's
protected.
That boy's got the U.S. military around his pond.
Because like I don't have any need for a good jump shot, but if someone showed me a meme of me shooting a ball with a backpack on, I think it would bother me. I do think it would bother me. I have no need for a good good jump shot. And to pair this idea of insecurity mapping as well as in ignorance mapping, if you're confident that you're not a good shooter, if the one thing you're confident when it comes to shooting is you're not good at it, then the ignorance mapping is like, okay, well, what are the best shots for my team, right? What are the shots that net the most possible points? Obviously, it's layups. Layups are the most efficient. They're the most efficient shot in all of basketball.
Free throws.
Right. Free throws. Got to get the free ones, right? Catch and shoot corner threes. So if you know that, I'm not a great shooter, just get really, really good at the ones that your team needs, right? That like, it's like somehow we keep talking about gambling at some one way or another in every of these podcasts, but in like blackjack, people will say blackjack is not about winning every hand; it's about winning the big ones, right? It's all about winning the big ones. So you have to find a way to make the big ones. If you can be 50% from the corner catch and shoot, that's good enough. Like you will find a place, and if you're good at other things on the court, like your teams will find a place for you if you can make that shot 50% of the time, and you have other skill sets you can add. That's huge. So a big part of that is, okay, if I asked you right now, if I was sitting across the table from a 17-year-old basketball player, and I said, okay, what are the most efficient shots? And you don't know, that is you mapping the ignorance. Like, I don't know where those shots should be. Therefore, I should go and figure that out. I should go watch film. I should message someone like Trey. I should go do these things. Or you say, I don't know if I'm good enough to play mid-level Europe basketball. Maybe you're like a mid-level Division One. You're a mid-major Division One basketball player, and you're thinking like, I think I'm good enough to play overseas. I don't know for sure. It's like, okay, here's what you do. You find another player from mid-major basketball. You go to their career. You say, okay, I'd like to have a career like this person. Then you scrounge, you fight to find some of their footage of them playing basketball in Europe, and you say, what are these people good at?
Mm-hmm.
If anything, you'll just be like, well, I'm going to get good at this stuff because this guy's also good at this, and then you'll know that you're at least the diet version of a guy who's already doing it, right?
Yeah.
That's ignorance mapping. That is what you do. You find a way to get some sort of template, some sort of rubric, and then you grade yourself honestly against it without throwing rocks in your own pond, without being woe is me, without being like, I'll never be this. And then you put the work in.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
Yeah. I think an interesting point to that too, and I think where a lot of athletes will get hung up is, okay, let's say they do the ignorance mapping. And then it's like, okay, these are my inefficiencies. And then you get to the point where it's like, okay, I know I need to put in work. Then you almost have to ignorance map again and be like, do I even know how to work? Do I know how to build a system that will allow me to improve in these areas that I know I need to? And my biggest thing is the first step in doing that is the first step in ignorance mapping your training is trying stuff and getting that skill of evaluating, this helped me or this didn't, right? This is the first step in ignorance mapping your processes and your work and your systems. And so every drill in the world is available online somewhere, right? And am I sitting up here and saying go try every single drill in the world? No, but I am saying go try some, and then and then reflect on it. Did I feel like I got better doing this? Did I feel like I got worse? Did what I do actually have some sort of game translation? Or was this workout just to make me feel good? And kind of where I'm leading with this is two main kind of circles of thought on this one: constraint-led approach and repetition-based approach. And these are the two main thought processes of training and improving, right? And when you think about those two, there's people really adamant on both sides saying this is the way. And I think the only way that you figure out your way is you try out both, and then you evaluate when is the time for this, when is the time for that. Some people think the constraint-led approach is the best way to learning anything at any time. And I actually had a conversation with one of my buddies, Mitchell Kirsch. He's Hoopin' Mitch on Instagram. And I had posted a drill on my Instagram that kind of went viral, and it was just like a very simple form shooting thing, and this idea of shot sequencing and these things. And he called me and he was like, "Hey man, do you believe in this type of training now, and just repping out your shot sequencing?" And I said, I don't think this has the highest actual game payoff to making more shots. I don't think the perfect form makes the most shots. But then I explained to him, I said, yeah, I'm injured. I can't do anything else. So for a guy in my situation right now, I can't do the dynamic training. I can't have the semi-live defense. I can't work on stuff off the move. It's a lot more nuanced of a situation I'm in. I said, I do think this has a time and place right now. And he understood that. But to him, it was still not like I was doing something incorrect, but it was like, hey, you're not maximizing your growth, because he believes to get maximum development, you need to put yourself in these dynamic situations where you have a lot of external information that you're processing. Yeah. So external focused, and form shooting and shot sequencing is very internal focused.
Yeah. And so I want to jump in really. I'm gonna cut you off.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this idea is much easier seen in endurance and physical training, right? So, for example, if I was a 5 and I knew that the normal 5 weighs 280 pounds in Europe or something like that, right? Would I train so that I can lift 280 pounds, or would I train so that I could lift 400 pounds, right? You would train so you can lift 400 pounds so that 280 pounds doesn't feel that heavy, right? Mm-hmm. In the same way that if I'm training to run a 5-minute mile, I'm going to do some of my training at faster than 5-minute mile. I'm going to do most of my training at slower than a 5-minute mile, mm-hmm. right? And the purpose is that you need both, right? You need to simulate you need to simulate the game. You need to simulate harder than the game, and you need to simulate way easier than the game, right? Because to go to the mile example, if I only train a mile a week to run the mile, I might be fast enough. I might genuinely have enough speed to run sub 5 minutes, but I won't have the conditioning to make a mile feel short enough that I can be confident that I can attack it, right? Mm-hmm. I still have to have the 20, 30 miles a week of extra work in order to make myself strong enough to be able to execute on the speed that I'm practicing with 20% of my training, right? Yeah. In the same way that, yes, constraints are so important. But if your shot sequence is all arms and you're like, why am I missing all the shots at the end of the game? Yeah. It's well, yeah, because you're tired, right? Mm-hmm. you're physically tired, and your arms just they don't have enough endurance, or whatever you want to put in there. So there is an aspect of, can you make 80 out of 100 in an empty gym? Is that possible for you? Mm-hmm. Once that's possible for you, can you also make 40 out of 100 with simulated defense, right? Yeah. Can you make 20 out of 50 off of aggressive movement before you catch the ball, right? But I don't know. I think that there is a base training approach to, can you just stand in the spot and make a shot?
Yeah. Yeah. it's really interesting because Mitch's perspective in the constraint-led approach would say that foundational stuff will adapt to your environment. So it's like spending the excess time that you think to fine tune that, it will fall into place in the correct environment. So if you have a shot sequencing issue, if we put you in an environment where you can't have a bad shot sequencing, where we set up the drill where the closeout's so fast that if you lose your legs and shoot with your arms, it's going to be so flat it'll be blocked every time. It's like we can build something to train that same thing. And I agree on 90% of it. 90% of it makes sense. I think if in a perfect world, if everyone had the resources to have a trainer, to have multiple guys playing defense, to have multiple basketballs, multiple empty gyms, like those are optimal, and you need to be in those as much as you can. You need to hunt those out. Those opportunities will have the biggest dividends, but also circumstance dictates a lot, right? I'm at home right now, and all the other guys at my talent level aren't here. So when I start getting back to the level where I can play again, I'm going to have to manufacture challenge in a new way. And I might have to get two guys that are well below my level. I might have to go play in some open gyms where I'm the best player head and shoulders. But that's the circumstance I have. And that doesn't take away my belief that the constraint-led approach is the most optimal. But development isn't always in the perfect environments. And I think that's the thing that I want to hammer home to young players is sometimes you have to make do with what you got. And you have to have enough ignorance mapping of training and knowing, okay, like I know that this form shooting isn't going to get the same explosive results as if I was in dynamic constraint-led approach, but this is where I'm at right now, and I respect that. And I know this isn't optimal, but this will move the needle as much as I can in my current situation. And so it's funny. I ended the conversation with Mitch, and he's like, "Yeah, man, this made me feel better. I'm glad you're not fully bought into the other approach." And I was like, I'm not bought in either way. And I also told him, I said, I'm not fully bought into the constraint-led approach either. Do I think? I looked at him and I said, your way is better. I think growth in athletes, healthy athletes, is better in that. But if you're going to tell me, hey, don't do form shots right now because you're not going to get the most out of it, well, hey, brother, what else can I do? I can't do impacts. So you want me to?
Yeah.
So there are ways to integrate it, and you can get really creative with the constraint-led approach, and which I think takes a lot of high-level thinking, and it's really hard to just do that on your own. So if you have a really high-level thinker that knows you and knows your game and your situation, that can be a superpower. That can be a supercharger, and I think there's huge value in that. And I think that's why, Mitch works out Duncan Robinson every summer. That's potentially the best shooter in the NBA on consistency and percentage. You can argue Steph Curry, but Duncan Robinson, it's all he does is shoot, really. I mean, he's getting a little more handoff, pick and roll type situations, but Mitch fine-tunes with him. And that's how Duncan Robinson moves the needle, because he's so advanced. He needs these super intense, complicated, not even complicated, but very nuanced constraints. Like a drill for me and a drill for Duncan Robinson are going to look a lot different. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I think the thing that I maybe I disagree with you guys on this. Maybe this is not something that because I'm thinking about it from a development perspective. I think that radicalism in anything is bad. I do, right? Like, I think that if someone says only do this, then you'll be fine. It's like, okay, well, no. It would be the same thing as someone says, well, going in the sauna lowers all-cause mortality, so I don't have to exercise because I go in the sauna for 10 minutes every day. Yeah. I don't have to eat healthy. It's like, okay, you're not healthy. You're like, yes, you're doing one thing that's healthier, but not, you know what I mean? So, I think with where you're at in your career, and honestly, most people you talk to, I think that one of the things that's been really interesting about the atypical community, that from what I've seen so far, way higher level than I thought it was going to be from an aggregate, an average person, right? I thought there was going to be a lot more freshman, sophomore in high school trying to get up to that varsity level. It's like, no, these are high level, junior, senior high school trying to go to the high major, trying to go pro, like all that. Anyways, so I was surprised by that. So I do think that the people that you are coaching and you're interacting with need a lot more constraints. Mm-hmm. But when I think about like 8th grade Trey, I think that form shooting and spot shooting was actually probably really helpful, right? because yes, get you in situations, mirror game like stuff. You should be doing that 60-70% of the time. But also just experiencing the how good it feels to get a perfect swish, right? Like how good it feels to push yourself to, can I go 5 in each spot and not miss for 25 shots, right? Mm-hmm. And experiencing that feeling. It's the same thing as like Bryson DeChambeau talks about, you want to learn how to shoot under 60? It's like, play from the red tees until you can go under 60 every single time you play from the red tees, right? Because now you're playing from the black tees and you're on pace for a 58. You've shot 58 so many times, right? You're 3 for 3 in a game and people are like, dude, you're going crazy. You're 4 for 4, you're 5 for 5. But you've seen 12 go through. Yes, it was by yourself in an empty gym, but you've still seen 12 go through. And one of the things about constraint-based training is you probably won't see 12, 15 straight go through because you're simulating a scenario that's harder than the game.
Yeah.
So that's my whole thing. Is like, maybe from a young perspective, building the foundation, you just need to see yourself be great, even if that means making 20 free throws in a row by yourself in an empty gym.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of the constraint-led approach, too, is about, we definitely need to have Mitch on this podcast. He would be a great guest. I've went on his podcast and talked back and forth on this some. But his idea is in that same breath of, you need to see some go in, you can just dial back the constraints and still have a focus or a broad picture on it. So example, you're shooting free throws. You want to see, 15, 20 go in a row. You can still see that, but we're going to measure success by what he calls a BRAD, back, rim, and down. And so your constraint is, your focus is not on making the shot, but it's on making it a certain way. So your precision increases, right? You're shooting on a very specific point on the back of the rim. And that's actually having that micro but macro. This is a complicated topic to discuss, but that target allows you to be more precise. So then you're going to still get better results making more shots, but your constraint is smaller.
That sounds like intention-based training to me more than constraint, but maybe that's just semantics.
Yeah, it might be semantics on that. I think I do need to read up even more on the constraint-led approach and just normal skill acquisition, because basketball is such a unique game because it's such a dynamic environment. If we were talking about getting better at putting, right, that's almost a repeatable thing. The only dynamicism out of it is, maybe how you have to read the green in these different environments, but a moving, fluid game and the skill to do something very meticulous, very specific, and very accurate. I'm missing the word I'm looking for here. In a dynamic environment is a whole nother skill. And I think that type of skill may have a different type of development program needed than repping out putts, because I think a lot of times people confuse shooting in the same way as putting, right? And I think free throws are very similar to putting, but I think a dynamic environment is a lot different. I don't know if that tracks.
I mean, I think I agree with you more than I disagree with you. I just think that the percentage is probably where we have a disagreement.
Yeah, for sure.
For different people. But obviously, you're the pro. I'm just a guy. So
yeah, no, you're a pro too, man. You're a high-level professional. But, yeah, dude, I think we covered a lot of cool stuff. I think protecting your peace, protecting your tranquility, and just this idea of what was it, ignorance mapping. I forgot the main idea of the pod. Ignorance mapping and protecting your tranquility, I think, are two very powerful tools that I've kind of learned through basketball, but I think apply so much to the general experience of life. And I think the better you get at those two, the more enjoyable your basketball experience will be, and as well as your life experience will be a lot more enjoyable.
I have a final thing. Sorry.
Tie the bow, and then you're closing us out because I tried, and you go.
I cut you off. We talk about this all the time, and I just think it's really important. But your basketball career is like you owning a business, right? And when it comes to all of the things for a business, right? When it comes to your marketing, it comes to your inventory, it comes to your accounting, it comes at the end of the day, the things that you don't know, you'll either have to hire someone who could do it for you, or you will have to learn it. So it's really easy to see this as a pro, because if you think of your salary as the revenue that you make as you contract out your skills for basketball, right? So for Trey, it makes a ton of sense every summer he comes home to hire someone to help him train, because that is an expense that is going to be paid back in his following salary. So when we talk about the ignorance mapping, and we think about the expenses, and we think about paying for things, we think about gym time, all this stuff, those are the expenses to cover that ignorance in order to be able to make a higher return on our basketball careers, to return more into our game, right? Basketball scholarships, that's revenue for your game. NIL now, that's revenue, right? These different things. If you could think of yourself as a business, right? And you could think of yourself as like, okay, my business is really good at the pick and roll and shooting, catch and shoot corner threes, right? That's what you're selling to teams. You know what your value is, you know what you offer, and that way you can be more confident, and that will protect your pond, and it'll allow you to map your ignorance in a way that's not, I'm not good enough. It's, I don't have this yet. And you will build the skill of how to go out there and find the things you don't know, and either have to, once again, pay to have them covered by somebody else, or pay to have someone teach you, or pay with your time on YouTube and learning the stuff, right? But at the end of the day, that's what a pro is. A pro is someone who owns their development top to bottom, can see their ignorance, and can address it with whatever makes the most sense. So, a couple housekeeping things. February 9th, Atypical merch drop.
Let's do it, man.
Coming to you live.
Let's go.
If you're a frequent listener of the pod, I'm gonna give you something. We're gonna do a giveaway to subscribers to the Atypical Intentions YouTube channel. We're gonna give away something. What I need from you on this episode is I need you to comment, do you want a shorts and shirt? Do you want a sweatsuit? I don't know. We don't know what to give you because there's so many awesome things in this drop. So go ahead and comment on the video on YouTube. If you're listening to this on Spotify, just jump over to YouTube, make sure you subscribe, comment, and then on February 9th, when we launch things, we're going to do a giveaway for people who are subscribed to this channel. So subscribe, give it a like. Thank you for another great week of Atypical Intentions.
Let's do it.